It's always struck me as interesting that while as parents we make many sacrifices to benefit our children, the same isn't true of society as a whole. Kids are expensive. College costs as much as a small house, and millions of people save through 529 plans, giving up that extra vacation or bigger car in order to secure the future. But while we think long-term for our families, it's a struggle to get societies to think the same way. America's fiscal outlook has been declining for decades. Debt to GDP is above 100%. Next year we'll spend $1 trillion just on interest on federal debt. Historian Niall Ferguson has studied past great powers and their relationship with debt. He points out that when a country spends more on interest expense than on defense, its prospects aren't that good. Unfortunately, the US has just crossed that threshold. There are no votes in fiscal prudence. That's because there's no obvious pain. Interest rates have moved up because of tighter monetary policy, but 30-year yields at 4.5% don't seem to reflect much, if any, penalty. So if markets aren't worried, why should voters be? And it seems they're not. Raising taxes today to benefit later generations isn't a platform for political success. And one could argue that since the outlook has been terrible for as long as any of us can remember, without any apparent economic damage, maybe the worriers are wrong and will continue to muddle through. Global warming is a similar issue. It's a long-term threat that requires enormous spending today in order to benefit our descendants 30, 50, and 100 years from now. Climate scientists are warning of catastrophe if we don't stop using fossil fuels. Every storm or heat wave is blamed on a warming atmosphere, except that because the weather is such a complex system, you can never be certain that any one effect made it unusually wet, windy, or hot. We're definitely not on track to hit the 0 by 50 UN goal, which is to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 in order to limit any temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So how come the stock market keeps going up? 2 years ago, Stuart Kirk, who was at the time HSBC's head of responsible investing, made just this point.
Now, interestingly, at the moment, markets agree, more or less, with me, despite the hyperbole, and this is a fun slide I put up just to annoy people. The more people say the world is going to end, and here I've looked at the number of incidences in all press around the world that use climate catastrophe. The number of times the phrase climate catastrophe is mentioned around the world, the higher and higher and higher risk assets go, in tandem. The more we're doomed, the higher prices go. How is that possible? So what's going on then? The Sharons and the Mark Carneys of this world need to tell us why prices are going up with our own demise.
Stuart Kirk soon resigned from HSBC, but he was making a good point. In the 2 years since, markets have continued higher. Back in the 1990s, when Bill Clinton did oversee an elimination of the federal deficit, bond yields fell. Back then, markets were pricing for a bad fiscal outlook, and so addressing it paid off. Voters can see that. But if there's no obvious market penalty for continued borrowing or increasing greenhouse gas emissions, if markets which are forward-looking aren't showing any concern, it's hard to convince voters that they need to worry. The nature of democracies is that they address problems when it's clear they need to. That may be too late. Political leaders need to find a way to induce sacrifice today to benefit tomorrow's children when there's not much evidence that it's urgent. If you're interested in learning more about the energy sector and interest rates, then don't forget to subscribe and follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. Our handles are in the description box below. To find out more about what we're thinking, you can sign up for our twice-weekly blog at sl-advisors.com. We always love to hear from you. So if you have any comments or blog ideas, please leave them down below. I'm Simon Lack. Thank you for watching this video.